Welcome to Bigfoot Society. Today we've got a special members-only episode for you. I talked to Kurt from the Patreon about his Bigfoot encounter in the Fort Worth area back when he was a Boy Scout, and some interesting things that happened to him when he was on a remote bear hunting trip up in Alaska. You're not going to want to miss this. And a special thank you to all of the supporting members on YouTube and on Patreon. All of you that are part of Bigfoot Society, you're helping making this happen. Thank you. What follows is a teaser clip of this members only episode. If you'd like to hear the whole thing, you can head over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society to become a supporting member, or you can click the join button on the YouTube channel for Bigfoot Society and join the Bigfoot Posse or above tier. Let's get on with the teaser. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Kurt today. As I've said before, when people join the Patreon, I'll ask them, I'll say, hey, welcome to the Patreon, but you got any stories to share? And Kurt right away had some really interesting ones to share, and I invited him to come on the podcast to share them. I'm glad that Kurt said yes, but how's it going tonight, sir?
It's going great. I'm in West Texas, and it's really hot.
Fantastic. Sounds like Iowa up here. But Kurt, let's get right into it. I'm going to have you go ahead and take the reins, and I might ask you some questions along the way, but feel free to go right ahead.
Okay. Like I said, I live in West Texas, and I'm a geologist. And I'm 65, and I have a couple stories. My first one is something interesting happened to me when I was about 14, I'm guessing, in south of Fort Worth, Texas. There have been, I looked it up, there's been quite a few encounters mentioned around Benbrook Lake, and that's where I was. And from the 70s all the way up until now. And Benbrook Lake is southwest of Fort Worth, not too far. And but back in the 70s, it was way out in the country. And today, it's all developed and quite a bit developed. Way more than back in the 70s. It was practically way out in the country back then. And I for some reason, I decided to join the Boy Scouts, and I joined, and all I can remember is right off the bat, we had a camp out, and we didn't really know each other. No one really knew anyone. We were just all put together, and we went to this camp out, and I remember all day when you got there, we were preparing camp and cutting wood, and eventually we set our tents up and prepared for the evening meal. I don't remember much else going on, but it's been too long ago. But the tents were arranged about 20 yards apart, just spread out across there. And I was on the very, very southern end of the camp. And so I'm on the very southern end, and it's isolated. It may have been over 100 yards to the other end. There were probably 35 tents or something like that. But really what happened is that the ground is covered in what in West Texas we call layman's love grass. I don't know what it was called there, but it's gray clumps of grass, very long strands of grass that grow and then fall down to the sides, and it's very dry and crunchy. Very bad substrate to try and sleep on. And I remember we were in a 2-man pup tent, except two men. I was only 14, but I was almost 6 foot tall then. You barely could get two people in those things. I mean, they're so small. And basically, it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. We'd gone to bed, and I couldn't sleep. It was extraordinarily uncomfortable, and all I could think about is I wish I was home because I wasn't enjoying this at all. Plus, it was hot. It's always hot in Texas. And so when I was lying in this tent, my feet stuck out the end of the tent. There was just no two ways about it. There just wasn't enough room. And my whole foot at least stuck out the tent. And I had one of those old cloth type sleeping bags with red plaid on the inside and tan brown on the outside. People might be familiar with those kind of old sleeping bags, and very thick, really thick. And so I'm lying there, I can't sleep, and all of a sudden, something grabbed my foot. Just an idea.
Speaking of enormous animals, you yourself have been involved with some enormous animals up in Alaska, correct?
Yeah, 2001, it was 3 weeks after 9/11, I went to Alaska to hunt the giant grizzlies. Some people call them Kodiak grizzlies, or I was on the just across the Shelikof Straits from the Alaska Peninsula, the very southwestern corner of Alaska. And you have to really look hard to how far that goes before it turns into the Aleutian Islands. But it goes a long way. I think it's 650 miles southwest of Anchorage. It's way down there. And I was a big enough, this was in 2001, I was a big enough Bigfoot enthusiast. When we left Anchorage and we're flying down the Cook Inlet, I made it a point. On the left is the Kenai Peninsula, and on the right is mainland Alaska, the main part. So I looked at the end of the Kenai Peninsula and we got down to the end just because I wanted to see Port Chatham. I wanted to say I saw it from 12,000 feet, but I still saw it. And if everybody's familiar with those stories. But I made it a point. So we flew to Cold Bay, and in Cold Bay, you land, and it's a really long runway. I think it's 12,000 feet. I'm not sure why it's so long. It's just emergency landing part of airport for planes traveling to Asia and so forth and back. And Mount Frosty is sitting out there, and it's a perfect stratocone volcano. It's perfectly shaped, and like Mount Fuji or a teepee. I mean, just perfect. And it's snow white, just glistening white. And it's flat around it. It's just a volcano, just there all by itself. And it's just really something to look at. But so we stayed in Cold Bay there a while, and then packed up on a little Super Cub. And they had to tape they bungee corded my rifle to the wing because all our gear and everything. This was at least a week-long hunt. I'm not sure if it was 10 days or how long it was, but you had to have everything you needed, plus you needed to have an extra of everything you needed. Because if something broke or something, you weren't going to get another one, that's for sure. And we flew from Cold Bay for about 45 minutes in this little plane. and we landed in a sand pit. And I'm telling you, the runway wasn't 20 yards. He just plopped down and stopped. It's just, I had to, I've been to Alaska a couple other times and been in creeks and taking off straight at a straight up wall, and you just hope the plane's going to take off because you're heading straight for a wall, and somehow it does. And those bush planes are kind of scary, that's for sure. So we land in that and carry our gear to this little shack they had built. One room, a little bed place on one side, a little bed place on the other side, and a little tiny stove. And about an 8-inch square little window that looked out the side, little tiny window. And I got there, and he said, "Oh, well, if you're here an hour ago, a 9-footer walked right by here." And you realize, you realize you're not going to hunt over there or over by that mountain. You're in the middle of where these bears are. I mean, right there. I mean, they're anywhere and everywhere at all times.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. All right, I'm going to use this space this week to announce that I'll be at the Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon as an attender. I won't be presenting or anything, but I'll be hanging out, trying to interview people that have had Bigfoot encounters. If you're from the Oak Ridge, Oregon area or surrounding and you've had a Bigfoot experience, please contact me directly, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Also, Priscilla was nice enough that if you get your tickets through SasquatchSummerfest.com and use code BigfootSociety, you can get 50% off the cost of your tickets, which is a big amount. So code BigfootSociety to get 50% off your tickets, SasquatchSummerfest.com, and helps out the podcast as well. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. Here at Bigfoot Society, we're headed to the moon, and here's a current update about going full-time. So here we go. As of 5/22, we are now at 202 patrons out of 824 needed. That's 24.51%, almost a quarter of the way there, guys. Brings us down to 622 left to join the Patreon. So a huge thank you to Barbara, Gregory, Dana, Craig, Jeff, Steve, Ricky D, Norm, Megan, Dan, Daddy Chatty, Joe, Eber, Ike, Jules, Josh, Ryan, Todd, Nathan, Gabe, Bill, Lucky, Megan, William, Bobby Joe, and Inger for joining recently. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/The Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.